Masechet Baba Mesia Daf Mem Vav. Yesterday we saw machloket between Rav and Levi whether one can use currency in an exchange. Generally, a chalifin is a type of barter where I give you one item and then when you take acquisition of that, then the other item that I am trying to get automatically becomes mine. It could be two vessels, two items, or it could be a symbolic barter where I give you just a handkerchief that might not be worth much, but by taking that, then I acquire the other item. So machloket here is whether one can use currency to either acquire or be acquired in such an exchange. And so now we have a follow-up in the name of Rav Papa, Amar Rav Papa. Afilu leman damar en matbea naaseh חליפין, מעבד הוא דלעבד חליפין, הקנויה מקנו בחליפין, מידי דהבה פרה לרב נחמן, פרה לרב נחמן, לאו אף אגב דאין הוא לעבדי חליפין, הקנויה מקנו בחליפין, תיבא נמי לשנה. So Papa is commenting on that machloket and says, even according to the opinion that you cannot use a coin to effectuate chalipin, that means to make the transaction. And what would be the item that's being given over? The sudad, the cloth. So if I give you a sudad, I can get the chair automatically. But if I give you coins, then I do not automatically get the chair because coins is a currency and you cannot use it for kinyan chalipin. The Papa says, even according to the opinion that you cannot use coins in such a way, however, the other thing, that in order to acquire coins, I can do in that way. If I give you a cloth, I can acquire your coins. That works. Why? It's the same thing as using produce, fruit, according to Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman has an opinion that we'll see later, that you cannot use fruits to start a chalipin, because it has to be a vessel, it has to be a shoe, something like that, but not fruit. So Rav Nachman says you can't use fruit, even though you cannot use fruit to start the chalipin. That can't be the first thing that you give. Nevertheless, you can acquire fruit by kinyan chalipin. So therefore, currency should be the same thing. I cannot give you currency and automatically acquire your chair. However, I can give you a handkerchief and automatically acquire your coins. All right, that's Rav Papa's thesis. We are going to challenge it and reject it. Me'tibe. היה עומד בגורן ואין בידו מעות. אמר לחברו, הרי פירות הללו נתונים לך במתנה, וחוזר אומר, הרי הן מחוללין על מעות שיש לי בבית. So you have a braita that someone has produce, and that produce is ma'aseh sheni. So technically I have to take it all to Jerusalem, but I have a lot of it and I can't carry it all, so I want to redeem it onto a coin. The Torah says you can do that. However, the Torah says if I am redeeming my own produce, I have to add a fifth of the value. Rambam explains that that's because people tend to undervalue their produce when they have to redeem it. They have a pile of fruit here, it's worth $100 on the market. I'm like, no, I think it's only worth 90, right? That way, I think I'm going to try to redeem it onto just $90 instead of the real 100. So Torah says, since that's human nature, that we're going to undervalue in order to pay less. So the Torah says, add a fifth. That way, you're not going to be so dishonest to just, give half. But at that undervalue amount, add a fifth, then you'll be okay. All right. So the person has to add a fifth, but he wants to get around that. There is a loophole by which one can get around that, and that is that if I give maaser on behalf of your produce, I don't have to add a fifth. Because if I'm giving maaser for someone else, if I'm redeeming your produce, then I'm going to be objective about it. Oh, it's $100. So if I agree that I'm going to use my money to redeem your produce, then you don't have to add a fifth. So here's what this guy does. He owns this fruit and he has to take maaser. He owns this maaser sheni and he wants to redeem it. So you know what he does? He tells his friend, listen, this fruit is all yours. It might actually be the tebel fruit before he takes maaser sheni. That way he can still transfer it. And then he takes a tenth of it, separates a tenth. And then he says, listen, your fruit here, that's maaser sheni fruit, I am going to be very generous and I am going to redeem it with my money that I have in the house. You see, he doesn't have money. See, he's standing in the threshing floor where they gather all the fruit, but he doesn't have any coins on him. So he wants to do two things. He wants to redeem maaser sheni money without having a coin, and he also doesn't want to add a fifth. Okay, so he gives his friend the fruit, and he says, I'm going to use the coin that I have at home I'm going to use to redeem your fruit. Good. And then the friend is complicit in it, and it's a bit of a loophole, but still it works. And then, the friend will just be like, okay, you can have it back now. Okay, so this works. Now, the Gemara infers, Tama de en biado ma'ot, hayesh biado ma'ot, likne lehu li'idach b'mshicha, ufarik, dehachi adif, dehavale nochri. So it seems that you can only do this workaround if you have no coins. But if he had coins there, well then he could still give the fruit to his friend, but then you know what he should do? He should also take that coin and give it to his friend, right? Give his friend the fruit, give his friend the coin also, and that way it will be better, right? And let the friend redeem it, and that'll be better because it's all being done by his friend, by a stranger. So that's the loophole, even though technically it's permitted to do it in the first way. Here, I give you this fruit, and then I'm going to do a redemption with my coin back home. Technically, it's true, but anybody looking on, this is, what kind of strange loophole is that? You're taking your coin and doing his fruit that you just gave him? But so if that fine, you can do that if you don't have the coin available. But if the coin is with you, then give your friend the fruit, give your friend the coin, let your friend do the redemption on that coin. So then it doesn't look as bad. It looks like it's actually a real transaction, and so that would be better. Now, here's where the question is going to come in. Now, if you say that currency can be acquired through chalipin, and Rapapa, you just said that everybody agrees that you can acquire currency through chalipin. The only machloket is whether you can use currency to start off a chalipin, but everybody agrees that you can transfer it by having something over here. So then, why don't they do this in all cases? Even if this farmer who owns the fruit does not have a coin on him, let him give his friend the fruit, because the fruit is there with them. And even though he doesn't have the coin with him, let them make a symbolic transfer. The friend will give him a handkerchief, and then thereby the coin that the farmer has at home will transfer to the friend. And then the friend can say, oh, the coin that is in that guy's house that I own, because I just acquired it, that will be redemption for this fruit. So why don't we do that in any case? Since you just acknowledged that's better for the friend to use his own coin, so even if the farmer doesn't have a coin with him, why wouldn't he transfer to the other person? And so this is a challenge to Rapapa, because Rapapa, you said you can always transfer through chalipin, so why don't they do chalipin here? Rapapa's answer is, Telet sudad, he doesn't have a cloth. Okay, that's pretty strange. He doesn't have anything. He doesn't have a shirt, a hat, or something. It's usually easy to find a cloth. He has no clothes. Okay, let's say that. So why doesn't he make a transfer through land? You can always transfer movable items, including money, through land. If I transfer some land to you, even a small little bit of land, I can say, I'm transferring this land, and through that I want you to also acquire that coin I have at home. Why didn't he do that? He doesn't have land either. But it says that they're standing on the threshing floor. So isn't that the farmer's threshing floor that he owns? No, he's standing on someone else's threshing floor, which actually could be a sharecropper, that he got this fruit that he earned as being a sharecropper, but he doesn't actually own the land. Okay, so fine, that's why he can't. It could be very well that you could do chalipin, he just doesn't have any items with him. Now we ask, okay, now that you made this okimta, and you said this baraita is only talking about a case of someone who has no land and no clothes, is that really true that the baraita, that the Tana of this baraita would go out of his way, all the trouble, to teach us a law about a naked man who has no land, how he would get around a fifth of the surcharge if he wants to redeem Maaser Sheni? It's a very unusual case, and therefore we reject this interpretation. Elalav shema'mina en matbea nikne bechalipin shema'mina. And so Rav Papa cannot be right. And in fact, the opinion that says that you cannot use currency in the kinyan chalipin would say you cannot use it either way. You cannot initiate a barter with currency, and you also cannot acquire currency with barter. There's no way to acquire currency unless you actually transfer the money itself, or you could use kinyan agav with land. But that opinion says currency cannot be on either side of a barter agreement. And Rav Papa himself changed his mind after this. Ki had Rav Papa, havu lehu teresar alfe dinare bechozai. Akninu l'Rav Shemuel bar Acha agav asipa debete. Ki ata nefak le'apeh ad tevach. As the story of Rav Papa, who had 12,000 dinar that he lent to someone else in a place Bechozai, and he wanted to get them back, but Rav Papa couldn't travel there himself. So he sent Rav Shemuel bar Acha. Now, he didn't want to send Rav Shemuel only as an agent, because the agent is limited in all the things he can do in making decisions last minute. So he wanted to transfer to Rav Shemuel those coins and say, listen, I don't want you to collect them on my behalf. I want you to collect them on your own behalf. And then I trust you. When you come back, you'll give them to me as a gift. But I want you to be the plaintiff and not have to be only an agent. That way you'll have more power. So he transfers it to him. How did he transfer it to him? Through the threshold of his house. He said, listen, I am going to transfer to you this piece of land on my house, the threshold of his door, and through that I am also giving you ownership over those coins that those people in Bechozai have with me. And so he went, they did that, Rav Shemuel was the plaintiff, and then he came back, and Rav Papa was so happy that Rav Acha was successful that he went all the way out to Tevach to greet him and say, wow, I can't believe you did such a great job, and you got a repayment of the loan. And presumably Rav Shemuel then gifted that money back to Rav Papa. What you see here is that Rav Papa himself did not use a kinyan sudar, which would have been easier. Hey, just give me a handkerchief, and by that I give you the coins. So you see that kinyan sudar in exchange does not work on either side of acquiring coins, and therefore he used kinyan agav land, and so he gave him a piece of land. So you see Rav Papa himself changed his mind. V'chen amar ula en matbea naaseh chalipin. V'chen amar Rav Aseh en matbea naaseh chalipin. V'chen amar Rabba bar bar Chana amar Rabbi Yochanan en matbea naaseh chalipin. And so too Ula and Rav Aseh and Rabba bar Chana and the name of Rabbi Yochanan, they all said that you cannot use currency as a means of exchange. You cannot give it nor receive it when you are making a kinyan chalipin. Currency does not work. But now we challenge all these opinions. Challenges from a braita. הרי שהיו חמריו פועלים טובעין אותו בשוק, ואמר לשולחני, תן לי בדינר מעות ואפרנסם, ואני אעלה לך יפה דינר ותרסית ממעות שיש לי בביתי. A guy's walking around, doesn't have cash on him, and all of a sudden his workers or his donkey drivers, they find him in the shuk and they say, hey, you owe us money. And he wants to pay them. He wants to pay them, that day. He's an honest person. He just doesn't have cash on him. So he goes to the money changer there. The money changer has lots of cash. And he says, can you please give me 1 dinar now so that I can pay all these workers? And later on, I will give you back a dinar plus a little bit more from money that I have in my house. Is that permitted, or is that a problem of charging interest? Paying interest. Both are prohibited. If he in fact has those coins in his house, then it's permitted, because then it's not a loan. In that case, it's more like, here, you're giving me something to your now, and I'm giving you already the others that I have at home. So it's an exchange. So we can do an exchange, even though you're getting back a little more than you gave me in exchange of items, and it's already there. It already exists. So it's not that I'm giving you more later for what you're giving me now. I'm giving that to you right from now. So so that's kind of a barter, which is okay if he has the coins. But if he doesn't have the coins, then that's a loan. That's the definition of a loan. You give me money now for me to use. I don't have it. That's why I'm borrowing in the first place, and I'll give you more back later. Well, in that case, that would be prohibited. That's what the Braita says. Here's the question. If you think that you cannot involve coins in the kinyan chalipin, so then this is going to be a loan no matter what, and it should be prohibited. Even if this boss has coins at home, what's the difference? There's no way that he can acquire. He can make an acquisition of those coins to the moneylender. Now they can't do a kinyan chalipin. There's no way for him to acquire them, and therefore, even if he has them at home, still it's a loan. He's taking money now, and he's giving back more money later. And so that was Rav Papa's challenge to Ula, and Ula didn't have an answer. He was quiet. But then the Biaba proposed a possible answer. Amar le, dilma idividi befrotetot, shanu deleka alayhu tib'a, vidi perahavu mishum hachi niknu b'chalipin. Says maybe they weren't talking about minted coins, but small copper pieces of metal where that are not currency. And that's what he says. Give me some pieces of metal, just plain not coins, unminted pieces of metal, and what he had at home also was the same thing, and therefore both of them are considered pera, meaning a commodity, not a currency. And that's why they could use chalipin. Give me this now, and by acquiring this boss acquiring these pieces of metal from the money lender, he says, give me this now, and you acquire from now what I have at home. So then it makes sense. If he has them at home, so this is a barter, and a barter doesn't have to be equal. That you can give me more for me giving you less. That's okay for barter. Ribit does not apply to barter. And so that's why it was permitted. What do you think? Rabbi Abba asks, Ula, is that a good answer? Amar le'in dekanami dekatani yefe dinar utresit velakatani dinar yefe utresit shema'mina. And Ula says, you know what? I think that's a good answer. It solves not the problem, and furthermore, it fits better into the words of the Braita, because the Braita says that the boss says to the money lender, the money changer, he says, I will give you yefeh, the amount of a dinar and some extra, right? The value of. So it means the value of, and he doesn't say, I will give you a dinar yefeh, a good dinar, a solid, nice minted dinar, and some extra coins. And so you see it's from the placement of yefeh instead of at the beginning, instead of yefeh afterwards. Yefeh at the beginning. Yefeh dinar means the value of, but not an actual dinar. So yes, it makes sense that he's giving him some unminted coins and not actual coins. Rav Ashi amar leolam damim ubefrotetot kevan itle nasa keomer halveni ad shevo beni or ad sheemsa mafteach. Rav Ashi says actually could be that this Braita is talking about money and protetot, meaning that the money changer gives to the boss actual coins, and then he says, here, give me this $100 worth of actual coins now, and I will return to you some metal scraps, some unminted coins. And so he wants to say that's still pirotetot, because in fact that's what it sounds like, right? The amount of yefeh dinar, and so that's why he still holds on to that. And he says this is permitted even though he's receiving actual coins, unlike this interpretation where he's receiving and giving only unminted coins. Here, the boss is receiving coins and he's going to pay back some unminted coins and a little extra, and that's okay because he has them at home. It's the same as a case of someone that says, lend me this stuff now until my son comes and brings the equivalent, or until I find the key because I have it inside here. And in that case we say it's allowed and it's not considered interest because because he has the item here. And in this case also we will say it's not interest because, look, on a Doraita level it's not interest because he's not paying back with money, he's paying back with an item. And even to Rabbanan, it doesn't look like interest because he currently has the item here. And so even though by taking money you cannot actually finish the transaction by taking money, the money lender, by giving money, is not going to be able to get the acquisition of the unminted things in the house. Nevertheless, because they exist, and he's paying back not with money, but with an item, therefore, there's no problem of ribit. Tashema, another challenge to the halacha that those rabbis said above. Kol naasa damim be'acher, kevan shezacha ze nitchayev ze b'chalifin. Kol naase damim be'acher ma'inihu matbeya u'shma mina matbeya naase chalifin. A Mishnah Masechet Kiddushin says anything that is money compared to something else. Not really clear what that phrase means. But anyway, the point is, once one party acquires that money or money-like item, then the other side is required to do his part and continue the other half of the exchange. Right? Once one party takes that item, the other party has to give the other item in exchange. So now, what does this phrase mean? Anything that is money compared to something else? Doesn't that mean a coin? And we can learn here that you can use a coin to initiate chalipin, right? Anything that's a coin compared to something else, once you give it, then you automatically get back the other thing. So isn't that a challenge to all the rabbis above? Amar Rav Yehuda hachika amar kol nishom damim ba'acher kevan shezacha ze nitchayev ze b'chalifin. No, not that it is money, but anything that can be appraised for its monetary value compared to something else. Once one party takes one, the other party gives the other. But in fact, they're both talking about two items, not money. In fact, it's not money because money doesn't have to be appraised. Money says on it how much it is. So it has to be two items. And in fact, this is a better reading of the Mishnah because look at the continuation of it. For example, if someone exchanges an ox for a cow or a donkey for an ox. So you see, these are two movable items, not money. So the point is, once, if you give me the ox, and that's an item that can be appraised for money. So automatically, once I get it, I have to give you the cow, and vice versa, or the chamor b'shor. So in fact, this is not a disproof. We're not talking about doing chalipin with money. That's not what the Mishnah meant. We're talking about items. Now, according to the question, right, what were you even thinking in asking the question? Don't you know the whole Mishnah? Don't you know the rest of it? Right? How would you have read this Mishnah with the kesad and say, oh, the Resha is talking about coins, and then kesad, how so? And it gives example of animals. Right? How were you even reading it? And the answer is Hachika Amar. Pere name avdi chalipin. Kesad hechalif shor bepara o chamor beshor. We would have read it that the Sefer is talking about a new case. The Resha says you can use coins for chalipin. And then Kesad says, oh, and also you can use movable items. Pere, but he doesn't mean produce, it means commodities, movable items. How so? What's an example of that? Oh, you can exchange two animals for each other. But really, these are two different cases. You can use a coin, and how does chalipin work in general, in other cases, with movable items? Here's how it works with movable items as well. הניחא לרב ששת אמר פרא עבדי חליפין, אל רב נחמן אמר כליין, אבל פרא לה עבדי חליפין, my kesad. The above readings of the Mishnah work for Rav Sheshat, who says that produce or any movable items can be used in an exchange, so that it doesn't matter. Animals also you can use in exchange. So either of the two interpretations that we just said for the Mishnah work. The first interpretation said anything that's damim me'ached, and that is anything that's assessed as money. For example, animals, right, that are assessed, their value is you can assess as money, and so you can do an exchange with animals. So that's fine, Rav Sheshet, because he thinks you can do an exchange with any movable items. Or the second interpretation that we said, we're talking about two different cases. Case number one is using coins, and case number two, Kesad, how would you do it with items? Here's an example, animals. Fine, but he said that's fine for Rav Sheshet, because you can use animals in Kinyan Chalipin. However, what about Rav Nachman? He says that you can only use a vessel. A vessel means like a utensil or a piece of clothing that you can use, but produce, meaning actual fruit, or animals, those are not called vessels, and you cannot do kinyan chalipin. How will Rav Nachman explain our Mishnah that gives examples of animals? And we say as follows: Hachi ka'amar, yesh damim shehen kechalipin, kesad hechelif deme shor bepara or deme hamor beshor. The Mishnah is saying that there are cases where you're going to purchase something with money, and yet that it can work because it's like halipin. How so? Let's say we exchange the value of an ox, meaning I'm going to buy an ox for its value. We assess the ox to be worth $1,000. So you give me the ox, and I'm going to give you the $1,000. I pull the ox. Good. I acquired it. And then then I have to pay. But let's say at a second step, before I pay the money, we decide, you know what? I say, instead of giving you the $1,000, how about take this cow instead? I'm going to give you the cow. I owe you $1,000, but I'll give you the cow instead. All right. So then that works. Because I pulled on the ox, you acquire the cow, or the same thing with a donkey for an ox. So here's a case where we started off as using money, but then it switches over into animals, and so Rav Nachman would agree in this case that it works because we started off as a sale, and that's fine. You can do a sale. I can acquire this item, and then once I acquire it, then yes, I have to pay. And since only at a secondary stage, I said, you know what? Take this cow as payment for the debt that I owe you instead of it. So it's really, we're separating into two different transactions. And so this is like chalipin, even though really it's a monetary sale and then a payment of a debt with a cow. And so Rav Nachman says, yeah, that can work. My ta'ameh de Rav Nachman. Now, what's the reason behind Rav Nachman's opinion? Sabad like Rabbi Yochanan damar devar Torah ma'ot konot umipnei ma amru meshicha kona gezerah shema yomar lo nisrefu chaytecha ba'aliyah. Rav Nachman follows the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rabbi Yochanan, at a deoraita level, money can effectuate an exchange. The second I pay for something, that's it. The exchange is done even before I take the item that I'm buying. Just giving the money, once you take the money, then the item is already mine. That's a deoraita law. However, the rabbis came and made a gezerah, and they say, no, it's not yours when you give the money. It's only yours when you pull the item that you're buying. Why did they say that? They said that because we are afraid that if I just pay money to the seller and then something happens, let's say I'm buying wheat, and then there's a fire in the seller's storehouse, and the seller, he's not going to bother to put out the fire or to save the wheat because he doesn't owe it anyway. And so he's just going to say, oh, that was your wheat, it got burned. And then that's going to lead to people fighting about it. So it's much easier and resolves any difficulties if it's only mine once I acquire it. That way, as long as it belongs to the seller is responsible for it, and even though I paid for it, but hey, seller, you better make sure that you keep an eye on the goods until I actually pick it up. So it works much better if we say that the sale is only effectuated when I actually take my item and not when I pay for it. But at Doraita level, giving money does work. Since it's a gezerah, we have a general rule. The rabbis only make a gezerah for common occurrences. Now, a regular sale is a common occurrence. I give you money, I take the item. But an occurrence that's not common, they're not going to make a gezerah. And in this case, where at first we said it'll be a sale of the value of the ox for the ox, which is basically just a sale. And then we decided in the middle, you know what, instead of giving you the money, I'll give you a cow. Now, since this was that's an unusual thing to occur. So the rabbis did not make a gezerah on that case. And that's why Rav Nachman says that works totally fine. And just by acquiring one acquires the other, and even though half of it is money, it doesn't matter. Once you acquire one, you acquire the other, and even though half is money and the money turned into a cow, that's fine. The rabbis are going to say that this exchange is effectuated, and so this works for Rav Nachman. Even though Rav Nachman says you cannot do an exchange with an animal or with produce, it has to be a vessel, and there also the rabbis made a gezerah that you cannot make an exchange with money. In this case, it's fine because really it's money, and on the Doraita level, money works, and the exchange of animal for animal is only a secondary part of it, right? When you add all this together, there's no gezerah, and on a Doraita level, this is an exchange of money, and that works, and there's no gezerah because it's not a common occurrence. U'leresh Lakish, damar mishicha meforeshet min haTorah, hanicha isabar la kerav sheshat, meteres la kerav sheshat. Now, according to Resh Lakish, who disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan, and he thinks that at a deoraita level, giving money does not make an exchange, only pulling the goods. That's the only way you can acquire something. All right, and according to that, if he explains the Mishnah as Rav Sheshat did, then it's okay. We're talking about two cases. One is acquiring something with coins, and the other is with animals. And Rav Sheshat says you can make a kinyan chalipin with animals, so that's fine. Resh Lakish would be fine explaining the Mishnah as Rav Sheshat did. Ela isabar la kerav Nachman damar pere la avde chalipin umatbeya la kaneh hechi mitares la. However, if Resh Lakish would follow Rav Nachman, who says that you cannot make an exchange with produce or with animals, and also he says that you cannot make an exchange with money, so how will Resh Lakish explain this Mishnah if he follows Rav Nachman? Because then you can't say that on the Doraita level it works. Rav Sheshat says even on the Doraita level, exchange with money doesn't work, so there's no way out. So in the end we say, Al Korchech Kerav Sheshat Metares La. So you have to say that Resh Lakish interprets the Mishnah as Rav Sheshat. There's no way to combine Resh Lakish and Rav Nachman. So in the end, Resh Lakish and Rav Sheshat go together, and Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Nachman go together. Lastly, Tenan. Kol mitaltilin konin ze et ze. Mishnah says any movable items one can exchange one for the other, and once you acquire one, the other is already acquired. Amar Resh Lakish vafilu kisma lemaot bekisma lemaot. And Resh Lakish says you can even exchange a pouch of coins for a different pouch of coins. Now, how does that work, right? That seems to be a challenge to all those rabbis that said that you cannot do kinyan chalipin with currency. And here, Resh Lakish is explaining this Mishnah that when it says movable objects, it's not just talking about shoes and furniture and things, but rather even a pouch of money you can exchange with a different pouch of money and use kinyan chalipin. So this seems to go against all of those opinions. Tergema Rav Acha bedinar anka ve'anigra echad shepesalatu malchut ve'echad shepesalatu medina. So Rav Acha explained that we're not talking about regular coins that are in circulation, but rather these two types of coins called anka and anigra. One of them is a coin that the king annulled. Sometimes there's let's say a new king and he didn't like the old king, so he says any of the old coins with the old king on it, that old dynasty that he defeated, you can't use them anymore. He prohibits them from use. Now, still, people might use them privately because they're used to them. They're worth value. You know, they're valuable. They still have a metallic value, and people are used to using them. So they might use them privately, but publicly, they're no longer officially currency. The other one is that the local province invalidated them. Just the people around here stopped using them for whatever reason. They're not valuable. They're officially currency in other places, but in this area, people stopped using them. So either way, because these are not currently coins that are usable as regular currency in this place, so one can exchange one for the other. It's not malchut with medina. It's one exchanging anka with anka, or anigra with anigra, or anka with anigra. The point is you can exchange round things that look like coins, but if they're not currently official currency, then that's okay. That's just called metaltin. That's what Resh Lakish was talking about. Usericha. Now I need that Rav Acha to tell me that this is true both for Anka and Anigra. Diashmoinan pesalatu malchut mishum de la sage kelal. Aval pesalatu medina de sage le medina achariti ema akati matbeyahu ve'en matbeya nikne b'chalipin. If you only told me that when the king cancels it, then I might think only in that case is it not currency anymore because it cannot be used anywhere. But if it's only the local province that is not circulating them, so then we don't use them here. But you go over to the next province and they use them there. So I might think that it is still considered currency because there is a place that uses it, and therefore we cannot use a currency in Chalipin. So that's why I need to tell me that even if it's just canceled in this province, that's sufficient for it to be called not currency anymore in this province, and you can do kinyan chalipin. So that's why I had to say the local province one. And if I only told you that when the local province cancels it, then it's not considered currency anymore. If I only had that, mishum de la sagile la besin'a ve'la befaresya. That's because over here in this province we can't use it, not in private and not in public. People around here just don't accept this anymore. So then it's useless. I might think it's only not a currency when no one uses it here because I can't even use it in private. But if the king said it's canceled, where you can't use it publicly, you'll get in trouble. But still, people are using it privately. I might think that that's still called a coin. And therefore, it's still currency. I cannot use it. And that's why Rav Acha teaches me that in that case also, even though some people are using it privately, still, once the king cancels it, it's no longer a currency. Sericha, that's why I need both cases, that even though they look like coins, they used to be coins, if they're canceled by the local province or by the king, they are no longer called currency, and one can do kinyan chalipin with those coins. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.